And turning now to Capitol Hill, where the race is still on to try and advance the president's so-called big, beautiful bill through Congress. President Trump now says he is open to a higher tax rate on the rich in order to help workers. Scripps News correspondent Nathaniel Reed joins us now live in the studio. Nate, new taxes. A lot of Republicans ran on a pledge of never raising taxes. This is something else.
Yeah, raising taxes on millionaires and billionaires sounds like something straight out of a Bernie AOC rally, but this is coming, Scripps News has confirmed, from President Trump himself. Sources familiar with this call yesterday between President Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson said that President Trump privately urged Speaker Johnson to raise some of those taxes on our nation's highest earners. Again, this flies in the face of what Republicans have looked at doing in the past. This is kind of more of a populist idea. At the same time, President Trump responding directly to that on Truth Social today with kind of a mixed reaction, if you will, to that idea that he reportedly floated himself. He said, quote, "The problem with a tiny tax increase for the rich, which I and all others would graciously accept in order to help the lower and middle income workers, is that the radical left Democrat lunatics would go around screaming, 'Read my lips,' the fabled quote by George Bush the elder that is said to have cost him the election. No, Ross Perot cost him the election." We're going all over the place here. "In any event, Republicans should probably not do it, but I'm okay if they do." So, yes, no, maybe, perhaps. Again, this is something that now President Trump has reportedly floated. Speaker Johnson, though, it's worth noting, in the past has said that he's staunchly opposed to a tax increase under this bill, like he said on the Kaine show last month. Take a listen.
I would not expect that. We have been working against that idea. I'm not in favor of raising the tax rates because that's our party is the group that stands against that traditionally. So there were lots of ideas thrown out on the table along this process over the last year. But I would just say for everybody, just wait and see. There's more details coming, and I think you're going to be very pleased by what you see. I don't think we're raising taxes on anybody. What we're trying to do is prevent the largest tax increase in U.S. history.
So again, making clear there that he wants to prevent a tax increase, but at the same time, Patrick, a lot of questions about where they go from here. Again, the reason for this tax increase to try and make up some of that lost revenue because of the cuts that Republicans have been looking to make to Medicaid, to SNAP benefits. Those are all things that have been kind of taken on or off the table reportedly by Speaker Johnson over the last week. The problem is they're looking now at a massive hole. They don't want to add to the deficit by putting forward these massive tax cuts, which will affect many Americans. So they're looking for ways to make that money up. One way to make that money up, increasing taxes on America's highest earners. You just heard Speaker Johnson throw cold water on it there last month. But Scripps News can now confirm that that conversation took place between President Trump, Speaker Johnson, where President Trump urged Speaker Johnson to raise taxes. Of course, President Trump responding in somewhat of a quixotic way on Truth Social, saying, you know, maybe don't increase taxes, but like if you do, I'll be okay with it. So,
any idea why the president is putting himself out there on this? In other words, couldn't he just say, Congress, you figure out how to pay for it. I want a no tax on overtime, all these different things, and figure out how to pay for it.
President Trump is inexorably tied to this bill, and his stature on Capitol Hill, his ability to push, to whip votes, despite the fact he's not a member of Congress, his ability to push certain members on the fringes, everything from the most moderate members of the House Republican Conference to the most conservative members of the House Republican Conference, is going to be crucial on getting this across the finish line. Speaker Johnson frequently says he's got the slimmest Republican majority in American history. For that reason, he's going to need almost every single vote in the House. President Trump playing a massive role. The idea of a big, beautiful bill and President Trump are inexorably linked. They are one and the same. President Trump making clear that he really wants to have his mark on this bill, even if it includes tax policy that you typically would not think of coming from a Republican. And I'm cracking up here because, again, this is the idea that Bernie Sanders ran on in the Democratic presidential primary, one that wasn't even too popular. It's something that President Biden tried to make happen while he was president. So, again, this is an idea which is kind of more populist in nature, less Republican, traditionally certainly not conservative. But a lot of questions about where things go from here and whether this is just President Trump floating the possibility to kind of see what the reaction is, or whether this is something that could really end up in this tax bill where we both see, you know, everything from taxes being lowered for many Americans, but maybe raised back to previous rates under before the first Trump administration. I mean, again, this could really go in any one of many directions.
Meanwhile, don't you still have a lot of Republicans that signed that Norquist pledge, thou shalt not raise taxes? There's no way that they're going to violate that. They've signed their names to it, or maybe they will if the arm gets twisted hard enough.
The power of populism, and the power of President Trump. If President Trump expends political capital, goes to Capitol Hill, and says, I want this, or brings the right members into the White House and tells them that this is something he absolutely wants in the bill, he's certainly going to face pushback. We've already heard it. But, I mean, last month there was a question asked in a gaggle that I was in with Senator Lindsey Graham, the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, who was asked this question about raising taxes. He goes, we probably won't see that. Didn't necessarily close the door entirely on that. So a lot of questions about where things could go from here. Could the massive this massive transformative tax cut that President Trump has envisioned also be a massive tax increase for the highest earners? Certainly could.
Do you think at the end of the day this is going to happen? Let's have you just look in the crystal ball. Fast forward, is this something, do you really see this Congress raising taxes on anybody?
I truly do not know. I don't know how they reached agreement on this. There's already so many things in this package which are so fraught. The question of raising the SALT cap, which the blue state Republicans, the 5 Republicans from like the New York City area, upstate New York, a state that gets hammered over the head with SALT, the state and local tax deduction. They really want that $10,000 cap on the state and local tax deduction raised somewhere much, much higher. That's something that conservative Republicans do not like at all. So that's just one example of something where there's already a lot of discontent. Again, this is just another area which Republicans could go to war over.
To be continued.
Exactly.
Congressional correspondent Nate Reed for us. Nate, thanks so much.